Hello, and welcome to the Practical Prophetic, where prophetic ministry is made practical. I'm Beth Wingate, I'm your host, and welcome to the podcast. Hello, and welcome to our podcast. I'm so excited today to have my pastor, Pastor Shane Bearden, back on the program. Welcome, Pastor Shane.
Hey, Beth, I so appreciate the work that you do with this podcast. And as always, we love you guys, your whole family, your kids, your parents, your sister, your brother-in-law, niece and nephew, all such great people. And we're very fortunate to have all of them a part of our ministry. And thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yes, I'm super excited. Of course, we love our church and our church family and all the great things that God has you doing. And that's why I wanted to have you for 2021 back on the program, because we're going to sort of begin to shift gears as we go forward in the podcast. And we're going to begin to transition into talking about a new form of the prophetic, which most people are familiar with, which is dreams and visions. And so we've pretty much covered how God speaks to us through our five senses. And we're going to really explore the whole realm of God showing us things, or becoming what the Bible calls a seer. And so I'm excited to sort of work our way through these definitions. You know, our root word that we're rooted in is Strong's H5012 Naba, which just means to be inspired of the Holy Spirit. So I'm going to pretty much just flip it over to you and let you sort of just share what God's put on your heart. I know recently I believe it was our first service of the year, or was it the one to close out 2020, God gave you a word to share for our area. Yes, I'm just going to hand it off to you.
All right, good deal. Yeah, it was the last Sunday of 2020. And a pretty interesting time, of course. We all know, no matter where you're going to be listening to this podcast from, it's easy to say that the year 2020 was very challenging, and it has been for the whole world. So I don't think there has been, at least in recent memory, a time where people were more hopeful for the new year as far as it relates to our calendar than this year. And so I had an experience, and I'm really honored to be able to speak about this. And some of this will be local, but I'll try to speak about it in a context for no matter where you're watching this or listening to this rather from, that you can connect with the details of it. But about 2 years ago, I had a dream, actually, and that's funny. I did not know that you were getting ready on your podcast to launch into talking about dreams, so I will definitely be very attentive to that. But I don't dream a lot as far as spiritual dreams. I think I'm like, most people. I go through seasons of having dreams, and the one thing I've always noticed is that when God does speak to me in dreams, it's usually fairly profound. Usually I'm immediately aware as soon as I wake up that God has spoken. And I think, God speaks your language, so I think he really knows how to get the point across. But this was, other than one other dream that I had years ago when I was a much younger man, this was probably, at least in recent memory, the most profound dream that I've had in my life. And the basic details of the dream is that I was visited by an angel, and I could try to go into describing the look and the presence of the angel, but words would probably fail me on that. I just knew that I was in the presence of an incredibly powerful being. All of my senses were heightened with the knowledge of the power. That was what was the number one thing that I was picking up in the dream, is that I am in the presence of an incredibly powerful being. And funny enough, it was in my garage. That is where this whole, when we were talking before we started recording, that was one detail I didn't tell you. It all happened in my garage, which is funny and interesting. But in the dream, the angel pointed to a specific area that's close to my house, the house that I was living in at the time. That's basically between where my house is located and where our church building is located, and told me that there was, exact words here, this is an exact quote, there is great blessing coming.
Wow.
And I knew that the main understanding that I derived from what the angel was telling me was that it was an economic blessing. I knew that it was going to be an economic development that he was. I say he. That I don't for not say it. I'm going to say he from here on out. That the angel was speaking about, and I knew just in the dream that the angel was speaking about some type of large scale economic development that would come, that would be so large that it would not just impact one city, but multiple cities. As a matter of fact, really two counties. And if you're local, we're talking about the counties of Etowah and then, of course, St. Clair. I live in Etowah County, and then the neighboring county is St. Clair County, and that's where our church building is located. And the angel goes on to tell me that the years that we have put into planting Flow Church, and at the time of this recording, we have just celebrated for our 14-year anniversary, which is amazing, and I am so humbled and honored, and just thank God for the grace that He's put on us to be able to do that. And what a wild ride it has been indeed. And so, looking forward to great things. But I distinctly had the understanding that everything we had done was in laying a foundation for this event, this movement that would come, and it really, Beth, has shaped how I have viewed ministry ever since I had this dream. It really shaped how I have viewed, because the past several years have been difficult years. Our church has been through much. We've gone through a location change that was very tumultuous, to say the least. And then, of course, the past year, 2020, was a very, very difficult year for the whole world. And yet,
Right.
this dream and the information that I was given in this dream has really been the foundation for the posture that I have taken in life and in ministry. And just this past Sunday, which was again the last Sunday in 2020, was when I felt the release to be able to speak this word out. It's been something I have been carrying for some time, and it was exactly that. And as I began to prophesy this to our people and over our live stream, God began to give more details about it. So I believe there is a tremendous economic development that is coming, that is going to literally change the surface of the way things look, really shift culture. The word was that God was going to use this to make wealthy people more wealthy, that He was going to make normal people wealthy, and was going to do this to empower people that have been faithful in His kingdom, and that it was not going to come to those who have valued being zealous over being faithful. And I think that's particularly a word to the charismatic church, of which I am a very proud member. But I think sometimes we value zealousness over just being faithful. And I believe that's what particularly this past year has been about. I know that's certainly in my life. And it's going to come to the clean church. I believe God still wants holiness to be, the standard that He has for His people. And He began to show me that He was going to use this as an opportunity specifically for our ministry, but I believe it's also for other ministries around. I don't think it's just unique to us. To allow us to see all of the vision that He has given us. And He has given us so much vision, things that right now we just simply do not have the resources to be able to accomplish. But I believe with this development that is going to come, it's going to really take the lid off of some of that. And our church, we have a lot of small business owners, and many of them have been through their own trials and tests. And many of them, and it's very, very odd, not knowing what others around them have said, or at least to my knowledge, many of them have said, "Hey, we've started this business. It was a faith thing, and we've always believed that it was a God thing, that God was going to, that He called us to start this." We have many people who, were working jobs for companies and who went out on their own, and they said, I was perfectly happy where I was, doing what I was doing, and I have launched out, and started my own business, and I believe God is what is coming is going to bless these businesses. I believe that they're gonna really begin to boom, and I believe God has been positioning His people into the place of ownership so that they could steward over what is coming. There was a big, big, big emphasis on stewardship. That what God has been doing in preparation for what's coming is teaching stewardship, to His people and to His ministry. One of the other things, and I'll try not to get lost too much in preaching here. I don't want to know on the podcast. I'm not in the pulpit. But one of the markers of this was that our church specifically was going to be uniquely and strangely tied to it, to what would come, that we would see what would be seemingly unqualified men and women be voted into public office and take jobs and positions in the surrounding municipalities. And that God was going to open doors that were seemingly shut, or that people did not even know would ever be open to them, that positions were going to be suddenly come available to God's people, because God needed men and women that were after His own heart to be able to be in those positions of influence, to be able to help steward over what is coming. And on a personal note, and I'll try to be brief with this part, the Lord, the angel in that dream even spoke to me about going back to work in a family business that my family has operated in. My father, for the past 20 years now, has been working in something. And at the time that I received this dream, this visitation, I was just 100% for the most part in vocational ministry. My only job, my only income was through the ministry. And the angel specifically told me to not view it as a step backwards, because as is the case with many people who find themselves eventually in vocational ministry, I didn't start that way. When I started off as a youth pastor, I had work a normal job, a secular job, and had to work my way into part-time ministry, and eventually it became full-time. And that's oftentimes how we view the progression, how we think the progression is supposed to go. The angel specifically told me, do not view it as a demotion. It's actually a promotion.
Right.
That I'm going to put you back in working in a family business. And well, the short of it all is that my father's health began to decline, and depending on how you look at it, I, quote, had to go back to working in the family business. But miraculous things have happened to where a major growth surge has come to our family business, and now it has been a tremendous financial blessing to our family. I've been able to, my son, who is now 17 years old, is working. He works a job in the family business. My daughter's boyfriend, who they're just talking about getting engaged, and we're for that. So he, potential future son-in-law, is, while he's in college, is working in this. And I've been able to also, help take care of my parents, when they're in declining health. So just a series of things that I never would have saw coming. And most importantly, and I think this is the thing that I'm supposed to focus in on, is I don't know that I would have viewed it the right way without the insight from the Lord, from this visitation by an angel in a dream. I don't think I would have viewed it the right way, and probably would have cut myself off from the blessing that has come. And then to end this, and then you can ask whatever questions that you have. I hope this has meant something to people, because it certainly has meant something to me. As the visitation ended, in the dream, I distinctly knew that the angel was getting ready to leave. He tells me two things that are just personal. He tells me that we were going to move, that there would be opposition, but that we were going to move somewhere and be blessed. That we were going to move to a better living situation. And I want to be very clear: the house we were in at the time was great. By and large, we thought we were, living in a house that we could technically call a dream home. It had everything that we need. And long story short, we've ended up, through an odd series of circumstances, moving somewhere that is better than we could have ever expected. And just a great situation for us and our children. And then lastly, at the time of the dream, we were a no-pet family. This right here, Beth, is where people may just turn the podcast off and say that guy's crazy. But we were a no-pet family. And the angel just turned and with a smile said, "Oh, yeah, get a dog." Which
wow.
is totally not what, and for those of you that don't think God has a sense of humor, I think he totally does. But the angel told me to get a dog, and lo and behold, while I was off preaching a youth camp a few months later, someone presented my wife with, and kids, of course, the opportunity for us to get a little dog. And
an adorable dog, by the way.
Well, I am a big fan of the dog, but I will tell you, all jokes aside, as God is my witness, I would have said no had I not had this visitation. We'd had a dog in times past, gotten rid of it. I had told the family, no more pets. Kids, you can get your own pets when you move out. And I really had already established this as we were going to be a no-pet house. And this dog came available. I remember the dream. The Lord reminded me of it. I said yes, and I think I love the dog more. We have a little Yorkie. He's the greatest thing. And anytime that he does ever get on my nerves, my wife is quick to remind me that he was sent to us by visitation from an angel by God. And all jokes aside, he's brought so much joy to our family, and I just think that's cool that God would even care about the small things.
He's our unofficial church mascot, I think.
Indeed. Yeah, and I'm sorry it took me so long to, I hope I didn't waste too much time telling all that, but a lot of details in that, and this past Sunday is when I was able to release that word, and it was a great moment for me to be able to finally share all that God had put on my heart that was coming.
Right. Well, I want to dig in on the practical side. First of all, so you said that you were in your garage and this happened in a dream. So was this like you were asleep dream, a vision? I want to kind of get specific if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, asleep, middle of the night, just the traditional time of having a dream. And immediately upon waking, knew that it was God, knew that I had. As a matter of fact, I woke my wife up. It was early in the morning. I woke her up, and my first words to her were, "We've been visited by an angel. I've had a dream, and I've been spoken to by an angel."
Wow.
And funny enough, though, I left out the part about the dog until until actually getting a dog was something that got on the table for us to do.
Wow. So yours was a dream, and this angel came, and in the dream, I'm assuming this was conversation style. He just began to speak to you and sort of lay out the future for you.
Yes, he did. I say he. It was a man's voice.
Right.
Although I did not get. I remember this being. I want to call it light. It was definitely bright, but if I had to describe it in one word, he was illuminated in power. I remember being almost overwhelmed to the point of being afraid, yet I did not sense any harm or ill will, but had there been even a fraction of ill will, if you ever came in contact with a being like this that you thought meant to do you harm, you would be scared out of your mind. But I remember just being awestruck at the level. I don't really know how to describe it, so you have to forgive me for struggling with words. Just the incredible sense of the metrics of trying to measure the power that was coming off this being. And it took me a few moments in the dream. Time in the dream seemed to be going by as normal. Sometimes you have a dream that's in slow-mo, or sometimes it's, moving quickly, or you're jumping, periods of time. This was all just like normal. But I remember it taking me a few moments to be able to deal with the level of light / just power, just illuminated power that I was getting from this being.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've had different dreams in the past, but to say that I had a dream specifically with an angel, I think that's actually a little bit rare. And I'm sure there's purpose. I mean, God was obviously sort of preparing you for the changes that would come, in the coming year. And so that's pretty incredible, actually.
Yeah, he points to a specific area that is a place that has, that they, if you live local and understand, it's an area where the local municipalities have often discussed trying to bring about economic development. So that part, of course, fit. Just with knowing the topography and just the general landscape of the area. But he was very, very firm in that it was incredible blessing. He didn't use the word blessing, and I took it to mean, that it was going to be an economic thing, but I believe it really to be something that God is going to use to bring, relational blessing and ministerial blessing and a legacy of blessing. I don't think it's just money and wealth, although that was indeed, something that was cited would be a part of this. But I think it's really something that's going to the type of thing where, within a few years we will see the average median income be, potentially double what it is right now. I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure it's probably somewhere in the, I don't know, $40,000 to $50,000, a year range, but something that is really going to empower the faithful in the area to do more than they've ever been able to do for the kingdom of God. And just on a personal note, I think our church is just perfectly strategically located. And I really view like that my job, I may live my whole ministerial life just simply laying the foundation. I hope I'm young enough to still be alive to see this. And I really do believe this is something we're going to start seeing now. So,
I do too.
But honestly, I believe that I do. But honestly, at the time of the dream, it was so profound and struck my heart in such a way that it was something that, if I had been told, hey, you're going to give your whole life just in preparation of this, it would be worth it. I woke up knowing, hey, if I go my whole life and never even really see anything but the first start of this, I will still be okay because I so believe in what I heard. And it has us through these very difficult times of this past year, and not just with the pandemic and the political scene here in America, but even personally, this visitation has sustained me through all difficult times. It's something I refer back to on a regular basis for sure.
That's incredible. Yeah, I want to shift gears too and sort of dig in and talk about, we've been studying the word natsar, which is connected to the word watchman. We've been doing several series on being a watchman. And so, of course, God is, you're a pastor, but he's sort of set you as the watchman over our congregation and our church as the primary watchman. I think that encompasses intercessors as well. But that word also means to tend like a vineyard. And so we've been talking about sort of tending and nurturing and guarding a word that God gives you. So if we can maybe sort of talk about that. So once God gives you this information, to me, there's always this balance between waiting on the Lord, being in a Hebrews 4 Sabbath rest posture, and then at the same time, faith without works is dead, and doing something. And so always trying to walk the line of when to go forward, when to hold back, how do I tend this word. This word becomes like a vineyard, and then sometimes farming is working, and sometimes farming is waiting. Right. And then the harvest comes. And so, if we could maybe just talk for a minute about stewarding a word when God gives you such an amazing prophetic dream like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think waiting and working, knowing what lane you're in and knowing that, you'll sort of, sometimes both of those will manifest, potentially simultaneously. I can definitely see that pattern in the past 2 years since I've had this dream. The waiting part, anyone who knows me knows that I have been hyper-driven for 14 years for our ministry. As a matter of fact, in the first 7 to 10 years, for sure, to a fault, definitely to a fault. God had to really, put me through some things to work much of this out of me, and still from time to time will check me on this. Any good pastor wants his church to grow, and by that I'm meaning numerically. It's not all about the numbers, but I think any pastor would be lying if he said, "Hey, I never look at how many people show up." I mean, of course you do. That's part of it. However, the Lord really, you could say that this is just attributed to getting older and wiser, but really, no, it really was a divine work of grace in my life that was really kicked off by having this dream. When I began to realize that, this is, and I want to say this just right, this is the ministry, yes, God trusted me to plant the church, but it's not my picture to paint, if you will.
Right.
I may have gotten the canvas and, opened up the paint, and, I may even be the one holding the paintbrush, but at the end of the day, the image is going to be inspired by God. And truly, from having this visitation, like you said, part of farming is waiting, knowing you've planted the seed, and now just wait. A farmer must be patient. And I will say, as of certainly 5 years ago, no one would have described me as patient. They would have said some complimentary things like visionary, and that's kind of what I'm known for, and inspirational. I'm a passionate person, but no one would have said, "Oh yeah, he's very patient." I wasn't, but getting the sense that I was part of something this big, just supernaturally, divinely gave me the ability, just like what I said. If I never say, I believe I will, but if I spend my whole life just prepping for this, really, Beth, and I say this with all sincerity, whoever is going to pastor Flow Church after me, I have spent more time thinking about what is hopefully a spiritual son or daughter of mine. I hope that will be the case. I want to know that I've done right by them. I want to know that, and hopefully it's when I've died of old age with a smile on my face. And of course, we're still rapture people, so the rapture can take place and wipe all this away. But you get what I'm saying. I've spent more time thinking about, and I've even asked, Pastor Matt this, our worship leader at church, whom I've been in ministry with literally my whole ministry life. What if we were to get to look down as a part of the great cloud of witnesses on this place when we're dead and gone? And that may sound unusual. That may sound almost morbid to talk like that, but it gave me a sense that I was a part of something greater, and it gave me patience, and it gave me the ability to not just be immediately looking at what are we doing right now today to get the next rung up the ladder, to mark off the next tick on the measuring tape. It really made me throw the measuring tape away and say, I'm no longer going to measure ministry the way I previously did. So it definitely helped me in the waiting, that to have faith that there's something going on in the unseen realm. And then the work is the work side of it, because you said farming is waiting sometimes, and then sometimes it's working. I really begin to think about the people we have in our church, and I think I'm greenlit to share this. We have a couple in the church. I'll briefly tell this story. Don't let me wax long here, Beth. But there was an empty building not far from where I live that coincidentally is in the area that I believe the angel told me was where some of right in the heart of where much of this, whatever this economic boom that is going to come, that I believe has been promised by God, is an empty building. And, talking about working into, prophecy, working into, when you get a word. It was one night, and I just pulled into this vacant commercial building, and just directed by God. And I felt led of God to pray over whatever business. Number one, that a business would come there, that a vacant building is not good, that it needs to be producing. And so I spoke life into this building.
Wow. Hey, stop right there. So I think we gloss over that point. That has so much power in that, when you drive past an empty building, when you drive past a car wreck, I don't want to be weird about it, but especially when I feel directed by the Lord, those are the kind of things that should be a normal part of our prophetic lifestyle, is speaking life everywhere we go.
Yeah, well,
I just had to plow right there for 1 minute.
No, absolutely, for sure. And here, and to get on, this is called the practical prophetic. Just from a practical standpoint, when you do things like that, what I wasn't doing that night when I pulled over and pulled in that empty parking lot and spoke life, and vitality to that empty commercial building. What I wasn't doing was stressing over something I had heard on the news or something I had seen on social media.
Right.
I was busy. I was active. I was doing, the Lord's work in that moment. Well, here's where it gets wild, Beth. I don't even think I've shared this one with you. That next Sunday, no joke, that very next Sunday, a couple came forward for prayer and told me he does body work, repair work on cars. Very, very good, very talented. He has a real skill with his hands to do this. And he tells me that he and his wife are renting that, doing a lease to purchase that very building. And they wanted their pastor
and you had
to
no
pray.
idea.
I had no, as God is my witness on this. I had no idea. And I was able to share with them, well, hey, guys, I was in that parking lot a few nights ago. And, of course, their faith shot through the room, And, now they're right in the center of that, and God has blessed them. They've been able to purchase that building and now the building next to it. And, so going back to what we said, getting this word, it calls me just to view what's going on in my corner of the world, with more intentionality and to be leaning into that. And I think many pastors, and I don't mean to offend any pastors that would hear this podcast, but I want to boldly say something here, and don't pin this on Beth, pin this one on me.
It's okay.
If you're a pastor, just because you have a microphone and a Facebook account does not mean you have a voice to the nation. So many times we want to prophesy to the nations. I would encourage people, start in your own town. Start asking God what's going on locally. I don't think we just wake up and automatically have authority to the entire world. I think, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and then the uttermost parts of the earth. Start in your Jerusalem, start in where, in your area, and don't be ashamed of having, starting with small authority. I think it's a major thing just to be able to give a prophetic word to a few county area in our part of the state. While I'm going to let everybody else worry about presidential elections and, who's going to be in and who's out and whatnot. I see so much stress coming from people that stay focused on that 24/7. And I know that by focusing on this way of hearing God, it has allowed me to avoid so much of that stress. And I'm very thankful for that.
Well, ironically, one of the first messages I heard you preach was about Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. Yeah, I just remembered that when you said that. And if you listen to me long enough, I'm very stuck on the pattern of the outer court, inner court, and Holy of Holies, which I think just applies to so many things, including this. We need to be focused on, I say in the prophetic realm, first ourselves, and then our family and the people who are closest to us, and then, your church, your local area, whatever. And so we just need to be sometimes just bring it into focus, bring it in a little closer. And sort of, I talked about how there's a particular word for the prophet. And we had talked about, there are people that have a national calling, but I don't think that's certainly for everyone.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think, just being practical and being realistic and allowing the Lord to use you in your own sphere. And so the Lord has taught me over the last several years to sort of stay in my lane, stay in my sphere, and so that I can be much more effective, first with my family. And then sort of I have a Bible study and my mom's ministry that I'm involved in, and then the music department at our church. And so I've tried to stay in my zones, and so because I tend to be somebody that wants to do it all. So.
Right. Yeah. Same.
So
Same.
yeah. So trying to rein it in and to be excellent in the things that I know God has told me to do. I used to volunteer for everything, and that's not always a good thing. So.
Right. Yeah. You end up burning out, and really, Beth, and our family has been, much the same way. But, before you know it, you're doing everything, but the posture that you're taking. This is a word, I'm gonna have to dig into this a lot. The Lord is really emphasizing posture.
Mm-hmm.
I have teenage children, and sometimes they'll come in and they'll say something, and I'll say, hey, watch it, and they'll say, what? That their mom will ask them a question, and they'll say no, and I'll say, hey, watch it, and they'll say, what do you mean? I just said no, and I said, it's not what you said, it's the way you said it. It's the body language. I'll tell my son, if he's got slumped shoulders, and if he kind of, doesn't look at his mom, give eye contact, if he says it in a disrespectful way, I'll say, it's not what you said, it's the way you said it. I think sometimes the church allows the enemy to trip them up by putting them in a bad posture and serving and volunteering everywhere instead of looking for where you can be, like you said, stay in your lane, be most effective, and make sure that you are doing it biblically, that you're doing it in the order that God has you to do, and there's not an ulterior motive of seeking, credit or fame or notoriety. I think you'll be much happier. You'll have the right kind of posture with God, and then He will begin to, broaden your horizons, so to speak, and give you greater levels of authority, and give you, a greater region to speak to. But, I'm very aware. I do not believe I have a national voice. I do not believe I have a voice to the nation or the nations. But I do believe I have a voice that speaks locally, and I believe I stand by what I have spoken. I believe it will come to pass. I do believe God told me that there will be opposition to it, and at the time of this recording, there is great opposition taking place in that specific area. I'll be very brief with this. They are attempting to zone a certain part of the area and sell a big chunk of that acreage for what's called a rendering plant. And it's a place that produces dog food, and the city I live in, and all of the surrounding cities, pretty much in a 15-mile in any direction, 15 miles in any direction, 15-mile radius. We've all gotten a lesson on how that is done, and it's horrible. It's processing of, not to be gross, but dead animals, and they say there's a stink that is associated with it, a stench that will be cover a 15-mile area, and the property value of homes will go down, the value of property will go down, and so there's a huge battle taking place right now in the area, and I completely believe it's the enemy trying to counterfeit and to hinder what God wants to do in the area. And for anyone who hears this that is local, that knows the area, there are signs all over the surrounding towns, all over the communities, anywhere in the greater Gadsden area and in some of the areas of St. Clair County. People are putting up signs in their yards, in front of their businesses, that says "Reject the rendering," and that's what they're talking about. This rendering plant that is being proposed that's come to our area. And Beth, as an interesting fact, the business that I spoke about, that's the couple where I had the amazing encounter with them, where God kind of linked us up, where I pulled into the parking lot before they ever even signed the lease and before they ever even purchased the building, and just spoke life to it. Their property is the only business in the greater Gadsden area that borders where this rendering plant that I'm speaking about is being proposed to come in. And they have been asked by literally thousands of people and by a certain law office that they are the only one that are positioned in just the right place to have standing in the courtroom to where they can oppose this. And they are literally being the champion for the area to try to stop this proposed rendering plant that so many people believe, and it's because they believe it because it's true, is going to destroy property values and the values of homes and businesses all around. They were the ones that were contacted by the local groups that are trying to stop this thing and to get it stopped and not let it be passed by the mayor and the city council of the city of Gadsden. And that's just happened here recently. And there's a local business owner who says he's going to cover the whole deal. He's going to pay all the attorney's fees. He just needed somebody, and they were the only business that was positioned where the case wouldn't get thrown out in court. And so, that right there just really blew me away, because I thought, my goodness, the angel told me 2 years ago that our church family would be uniquely positioned in what was coming. And I think it's no coincidence that it's a family inflow church. Not that we're special, not that we are, I just think it's just because we have focused on stewardship. And I know this particular couple has done that very thing. They have put a hard focus on stewardship, and God is using them to stand against what I completely, with all my heart, believe is nothing more than a plan of the enemy to try to block the great things that God has for this area. And I stand to it. I told everyone, I'm going on the record on this podcast. 2 Sundays ago when I spoke this word, I'm putting it out there. If I'm wrong, I will repent and be held accountable of this. But I believe God is going to do something great in this area, and I believe many that are a part of our ministry are going to be connected to it.
Well, I believe that and stand in agreement that our justice system will render a righteous verdict in this case.
Amen to that.
And that God would have his ultimate way. And, it really just started. You said you were driving down the street and God had you, pull into this abandoned business parking lot and just speak life. My neighbor, I've shared this on here before, she gave me a quote, and it really was one of those that just sort of made an impression on me, but it was that every time we open our mouth, we are prophesying our future. So we've got to speak life. There's so much power in speaking life. And so I guess we'll jump off here. I think we've covered, that God definitely speaks to us in dreams. There's prophetic power in dreams. There's prophetic power in speaking life over people and situations. And then once God gives you a prophetic dream or a prophetic word, to steward that word and tend it like a vineyard. And sometimes that means working, and sometimes that means waiting. My brother-in-law is a commercial farmer, and there's seasons where it doesn't seem like he does very much. And then there's times where he's working practically around the clock. And so, but he definitely has to make sure that things are watered daily. He has to inspect the crop pretty much daily. And so I think there's a lesson in that for us.
Certainly.
Well, thank you so much for being back on the show. I definitely want to have you back. I always love to glean from what the Lord is saying to you. I respect the gift that God has on your life and the gift that you've been to our church and our family, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. And to everyone that listens to this podcast, I hope everyone values the wellspring of information that you are on this. And I just ask for everyone's prayer. Really humbled to have the opportunity to speak into the life of anyone that would hear this. And let's just all pray that we keep staying before the throne and live right and be sanctified and be used by God's power. That's certainly the goal.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beth. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll be informed next time I post. Thank you again and have a blessed day.